So lots of politicians in America are using TikTok
Yeah.
now, and sometimes it's pretty cringy. So this is like an American governor.
For a yellow bone, long hair star. Thick in the hips, come get in my car.
She was quite hot.
She was quite hot.
Yeah.
And that looked like he wanted to pump her. It looked
Yeah.
like he was getting ready. He was like a bull about to charge down this 15-year-old TikToker. But yeah, loads of them. Obama's been doing, he's done videos with like under the desk news and all this stuff.
Just stop it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if we did a TikTok, you're like, man, you're in your 40s.
If we did the dance.
You know
like,
what I mean?
The synchronized dance. Like, was that the family?
Yeah. It's just like if we came out in like, you know, muscle vests and ripped jeans, you'd be like, come on.
Yeah.
That time has gone.
It never was.
Yeah.
It never was, Francis.
Yeah, no, it never was, but especially not now.
Yeah. There's also this, so this shows the drug overdoses by year in America, and I thought this was interesting. I'll just put it on with no sound. But so this shows so prescription opioids, you know, shooting up literally.
Yeah.
So there's cocaine, antidepressants. Look, fentanyl's way down the bottom. Meth is right at the bottom. Heroin's pretty low.
Yeah.
And we can see, like, for years, this is 2011 now, prescription opioids. So the thing is, like, the numbers are just insanely, getting insanely high compared to just a couple of decades ago.
Wow.
And then look at fentanyl. Suddenly, just over the last couple of years, it's almost overtaken prescription opioids, and it's insane. And what's interesting is fentanyl is manufactured in China. And I think it's a deliberate ploy by the Chinese Communist Party to undermine the West by, spreading addiction and also death.
Yeah.
And like a lot of there's there's 3 comedians at a house party that died from fentanyl overdose because
they thought was it that they thought it was cocaine?
So they put it in the cocaine now. Fentanyl is so powerful and it's so it's such a potent drug. Like, you need such a tiny amount. People put it in pretty much all drugs. So even cocaine, which you'd think, all right, it's got that sort of numbing effect. I've been told. So they put it in the cocaine to, I guess for that numbing part and for a feel good thing. But the fentanyl's so powerful, just like an amount the size of a grain of sand kills you. So man, if that's not, and somebody cutting cocaine, they're not doing it under laboratory conditions. No. They're doing it in a bucket in their garage. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like the scene in Goodfellas when he's trying to cook when he goes around the girl's house and she's like, it's like that. So they're not doing it right. So a lot of people are getting accidental overdoses from doing cocaine, and fentanyl, man, it's all through America now.
You know, when we were over in America, which was in July, the amount of people on drugs, and you could tell these were like hardcore drugs. Yeah, it's terrifying.
Right.
It's terrifying. It's not terrifying because you're worried about your safety. It's terrifying because you're seeing someone so completely out of it.
Yeah.
So completely out of it. So not aware of what's happening. So completely spaced out that you just think to yourself, what is going on?
Yeah.
What is going on with society where people are addicted to that stuff and they're literally talking to a wall?
Yeah.
They're just there having a conversation with a wall, and it's bad news, man. It really is.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the breakdown of sort of tribal living.
Yeah.
Like we're sort of built to live in communities.
Of course, man.
Of quite small communities of maybe 50 people, 100 people or whatever, and then if you're born into that community, you're living in mud huts out in the jungle or whatever, you've got a place and a purpose and an identity and a whole structure around you. Whereas now society is very atomized and it's very individualistic, which is great if you can sort of master it.
Yeah.
Then it's great. You've got an incredible living standard. Yeah. You can you've got so many opportunities. You can fly around the world. You can meet who you want. You can really live the life you want to live. But it's also very alienating. And if you don't have those structures around you, you're not gonna sort of thrive. And also, if you don't have those structures around you, and you're not doing well, and you have a baby, baby's not going to be nurtured, and it's not going to get everything. Which is why one of the reasons I think people should be able to have access to abortion, because I hate for kids to grow up not being like loved and nurtured and getting the best start in life.
Yeah, if you're not wanted, man, man. That is just, you're already growing up and you are minus whatever.
Yeah.
So it's the problem is that we live in this society where we're becoming more atomized, where everybody is spending less time around each other. We're all more on our phones and blah 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 and all the rest of it. And kids are growing up and they're not growing up with their families. And you just wonder where this is all going to lead, because the reality is, you know, we have an epidemic of bad mental health, and there's people going, "Oh, just work out and take responsibility," and blah 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 blah. But if you feel completely,
I say that.
Yeah, but if you feel completely socially alienated and you've got no one to rely on and you've got no sense of community, you're gonna feel shit.
Yeah.
You just are gonna feel shit.
Yeah.
You know, and your family's not together and you can't spend time with your family. That's serious. That's a real fucking problem.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you get around that.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, I know TikTok as well. TikTok is also owned by the China and controlled by the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah.
And that's basically fentanyl, the fentanyl version of social media. It's so corrosive to society. It's not like, I mean, I hate to big up, you know, Twitter. Twitter's also, Twitter's like a cesspit of rage, but at least it's like interesting people, informed people discussing things, and you're reading news, and it's quite sort of, you know, it can be interesting. TikTok is just absolute, from what I've seen, it's, well, certainly in the West, it's absolute just asinine, base level, prancing. It's either jailbait or it's dancing. Usually dancing jailbait. Yeah. Which, I don't know, like, as a middle-aged man, mildly diverting, but, you know, it's corrosive to minds. And also, if you look at TikTok in China, it's they promote, you know, family values, and, you know, there's algebra lessons on there. It's the opposite of what it is. They're just using it in the West to destabilize the West, which, of course, the West loves.
Yeah. Well, like Trump tried to shut it down, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it will get shut down. Yeah. I was talking to, there's a guy in my baby group who he works in tech, and he says, number one, he says it's terrifying the amount of data that's harvested about you. You won't even realize it. You'll think, oh, I'm using a VPN, or I'm using you know, I'm incognito mode in this browser, so, you know, nobody's no, it says, like, even things like, so the app you use for your keyboard on your phone, that's tracking everything you're typing. So, you know, anything you say, it's listening. You know, they've got, all it takes is if you click OK on, you know, one thing somewhere, then that okays them to harvest all this data about you, and you won't even know they're doing it. Joe Biden also said that legroom is racist. This is another way. I think when he says stuff like this, it sort of alienates the middle ground. But let's watch this video.
Some airlines, if you want 6 more inches between you and the seat in front, you pay more money. But you don't know it until you purchase your ticket. Look, folks, these are junk fees. They're unfair, and they hit marginalized Americans the hardest, especially low-income folks and people of color. They benefit big corporations, not consumers.
Wait, how does... So he's talking about legroom fees, which as a 6'6" man, you know, this is something that is a motivating factor for me. I want, the main thing I want a politician to do is deal with the most pressing issue in society.
Of course.
Airline legroom fees. Yeah. Because, man, it gets on my tits when I get on a Ryanair plane, and they've got the emergency exit rows and stuff where people can stick out their legs. And I'm walking along, there's like a rich dwarf in there. That's rightly my seat. Yeah, exactly. I've got long legs, but I'm also really cheap. Yeah. So I don't want to pay the extra £6 for the legroom seat.
So you asked the star of Game of Thrones to get the fuck out of your seat. Is that what you're saying, man?
I just think it should be, you know, something like that should be apportioned on leg length rather than financial, you know, how much you want to spend on your ticket. But, man, he's saying people of colour get affected most by airline legroom fees. Yeah. I think, I mean, this is, if there's one thing we can probably say that colour isn't a factor. Yeah. It's this isn't, also, like, aren't sort of, I don't know, I'm massively generalising here, but don't sort of Anglo-Saxon people or whatever have longer legs?
I'm not going to get drawn in this debate, man. I'm not going to get cancelled. This is not the hill that I'm going to fucking die on.
All right, the Masai Mara, you know what I mean? Those guys got really long legs, but I'm saying, you know, like...
I just think, like, people and politicians are talking about shit that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know? And what actually matters is the fact that we have an inflation crisis. That for a lot of people, the economic system isn't working. You know, it's now would you disagree?
Yeah, I would actually, yeah. I think the economic system is working pretty well. We've got record low unemployment. I think it needs to be tweaked. We need to scrap a lot of benefits and make it more rewarding to work.
But I mean, like, as in, like, your take-home pay gets you far less than it used to. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, especially in terms of like fixed assets. Like, I mean, I think we're still living in an era where you can go and buy a chicken or some eggs for a remarkably low price compared to historically, you know, what eggs or a chicken or milk or anything like that would cost.
But agreed. But
like a house, man, like peasants in the medieval times, they worked fewer hours, and they had bigger houses. Yeah, and it's like, man, we should at least in 2022 we should be living better than medieval peasants.
Agreed.
I don't know. We've got, you know,
that's pretty left wing, Leo.
We've got better healthcare. We've got better, like, man, people aspire to just owning a, you know, 1-bedroom flat. Yeah. It's like, man, we need to have, like, you know, the better stuff should be attainable. Yeah. But it's never gonna happen, because we're always going to have like an overpopulation problem in the country, because we can't let the population fall. At the moment, our renewal rate, our fertility rate is dropping. I think it's around 1.4, 1.7? Anyway, it's way below the 2.1. Yeah. People need to be having, on average, 2.1 kids to maintain a stable population. Yeah. We're not, because it's impossible to have a baby and, you know, work.
It's two people now need to work in order to support the kids and blah, blah, blah.
And it's something that only, like, either really rich people or really poor people can afford to do. If you're really poor and you're getting all your money from benefits, then, you know, you can afford to have a kid, because, you know, it's not... You're just going to get extra money, and you can afford to do it. It's not taken away. If you're super rich, again, you don't need to worry about money. The people in the middle who need to be both working, you know, 50-hour weeks, they can't afford to have a baby. You know, it's well, we're doing it right now, but it is really difficult. And you know, we're obviously going to have to cut back on the amount that we can work. But the government is going to make up for that, because the government doesn't see a country as a society. It just sees it as an economy. So they just need workers. And so they're going to have immigration. If we've got a Tory government, we're going to have high immigration, because they want all those workers in here working in the factories and stuff, and they want a lot of immigration, because if you've got an unlimited labour supply, it keeps labour rates low and stops people, you know, reduces people's power to be able to demand better working conditions. And Labour want high immigration because they think those people will vote Labour. Yeah. At least, you know, the first, maybe the second generation will vote Labour.
And then they're shocked when they find out they've got way more conservative attitudes than anybody in this country. It's and like, way more to the right,
Yeah, here's Priti Patel. He's good to Suella Braverman.
They're like, no, they're the wrong type.
Actually, did you see this by Diane Abbott?
Oh man, I saw this.
Man, I couldn't believe it. So obviously we've got a bit of a migration crisis at the moment, with people coming across the channel, and a lot of them aren't genuine refugees.
A lot of them are economic migrants.
Economic migrants, you know, coming from Albania. So not even economic migrants. Like, some of them are just blatantly criminal migrants. Who want to come here, you know, help Albanian gangs run drugs, run prostitution. But Diane Abbott said, teenage boy raped at hotel housing refugees. Terrible case, but it is what happens when you demonise migrants and take no responsibility for safeguarding migrant children. I mean, I didn't know. I mean, she's actually unwittingly making a very far-right case for stopping migration. If, you know, you just demonise them slightly, and they just burst into spontaneous bouts of raping.
Yeah, exactly. They just can't help themselves. And it's just...
Isn't this what Trump said?
Yeah. You know, this makes me feel sorry for Keir Starmer. Yeah. You know, he's trying to put together... This is the best chance Labour have had in a long time to win a general election. They can just about see the finish line. Yeah. They can just about... It's like, you know, the Tories have imploded. They've made themselves look like... We just need to hold it together. We just need to hold it together. He picks up Twitter. No, for fuck's sake! What are you doing? And he must get that, like, on a weekly basis. Like, picks up a phone and sees what other demented thing one of his MPs says.
Yeah, because he's purged a lot of the craziness from the Labour Party. Yeah. But there's a lot still there.
Of course. Like, what do you say to that? Yeah. What can you possibly say to that?
I can't believe she left it up. She's like, but I'm just gonna, you know, blame rape on government policy. It's like, man, that's
That's
pretty crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah. So we also had the ONS, the Office for National Statistics.
Yeah.
They conduct a census every 10 years.
Yeah.
And they're starting to slowly release the results of the
Yeah.
census. So what they found is that 1 in 6 UK residents who's now born overseas.
Yeah.
So this isn't even like, including second generation or third, fourth generation migrants. This is just directly people who were born overseas and came to the UK. 1 in 6.
Wow.
It's mad.
That is
it's like
huge.
10 million people.
Yeah.
And obviously they just survey the people who,
Answered.
yeah. I should imagine a lot of the Albanian criminal gang people maybe wouldn't answer and spend 2 hours on the phone to the Office of National Statistics explaining about their business trafficking underage girls into the country. So I think migration could be a huge become a huge, because as a country I think we're pretty comfortable with high levels of migration, but if it's from people who are culturally similar or culturally will assimilate. And
I think the problem is as well, it's just numbers, man. It's just like when immigration was relatively low, people were fine with it. I think when they felt, especially with the EU freedom of movement, they quite literally saw like towns and villages change, over a period of months or years, if not months. They felt uncomfortable with it, and they have every right to feel uncomfortable with it. And your population has the right to decide the levels of migration into the country. And that's fine. And also as well, the problem is, I think, is when people conflate, immigration with illegal immigration, and the reality is there should be no illegal immigration into this country. It's a crime.
And Australia dealt with it with a plan that's sort of vaguely similar to in concept to the Rwanda plan.
And that's the problem. And people, and as well, we have conflated the issue of illegal immigration and immigration with racism, whereby if you say that you want a lower rate of immigration, that automatically paints you as a racist, when the reality is it's very different.
My racism is completely compartmentalized away from my anti-immigration stance. I think a lot of, I'm totally fine with immigrant. Like my wife's technically an immigrant. She's born overseas. She's Irish. But and we're very relaxed about Ukrainian refugees, because man, they're genuine refugees, women and children. The people coming across the channel, they're like 80-90% male. And Italy's just introduced this thing of no male refugees, and I think that's a great system. It's like, why is it just the men that need to seek refuge? It doesn't make any sense. So many are coming that are men. I can't remember where I was going with that. But
you were saying something very bigoted and racist, Liam.
Yeah, I was, but I was trying to dress it up in a way that didn't make it sound
bigoted and racist.
Bigoted and racist. But we're fine with people from Hong Kong coming, because man, there's never going to be like Hong Kong grooming gang.
No.
There's never going to be Hong Kong terrorists.
No.
So I think we're pretty fine with immigration if it's people who assimilate and contribute. And don't try and kill us or fuck our children. I think that's the two key things. I'm even cool with the job market the labour market being suppressed and all that. If anything, I sort of like it because it means you get taxi drivers you don't have to have a conversation with.
Exactly.
It's almost worth the grooming gangs to be able to get into an Uber and not have a conversation.
Look, I think to be honest with you, it goes beyond all of these things. I just think that you need to have, or this country needs to have, an immigration system that just works. That works, and that if someone enters this country illegally, it doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't matter race, gender, ethnicity, whatever. That is not acceptable. And they're punished to the fullest extent of the law, and that's it. And if you want to enter this country, as an economic migrant, there's nothing wrong with that, but you proceed along the correct channels. And that's it.
Not the English channels.
Exactly, mate. Boom!
And just before we wrap up, I'll just because one of the things that could be driving migration in the future is climate change.
Yeah.
Apparently. Although some of that, they're saying it's going to create refugees. I think, if people like vast tracts of Siberia, Greenland, places like that are going to go from being inhospitable, icy wastelands to being sort of like Scotland.
Yeah.
So not quite habitable, but
icy, inhospitable wastelands. Yeah.
But yeah, man, like everybody's still crying about literally crying. This is a Just Stop Oil protester.
Hello, my name is Louise. I'm 24 years old, and I'm here. I'm here because I don't have a future. And you might hate me for doing this, and you're entitled to hate me. But I wish you would direct all that anger and hatred at our government. They are betraying young people like me. I wouldn't have to be there if they did their lawful duty to their own citizens. I'm part of the Just Stop Oil Coalition, demanding an end to all new oil and gas licenses in the UK. What we're asking for is what all the scientists are asking for, what the United Nations are asking for, the International Energy, the IPCC. How many more people have to say, we don't have a livable future if you continue licensing oil and gas for you to listen? Why does it take young people like me up on a fucking gantry on the M25 for you to listen?
Jesus. Calm down, dude.
Over 1,000 people in the UK died in just a few days because of the 40-degree heat, because of the climate crisis, which is fueled by oil, gas, coal, fossil fuels. And our government, they want more. It is an act of murder. And this is an act of self-defense. And we need you to join us in order for this to work, in order for our murderous government to take action and listen. How many more people in Pakistan, in Nigeria have to die before they listen, even in the UK? We will stop as soon as the government stop new oil and gas. Please join us. Civil resistance is all we have left. The police are now here. And they're closing off the road.
They've blocked the
There's
road.
another person down here. Just Stop Oil is the only chance of a future that we have left. Just stop oil.
Jesus. I mean, she's saying, like, I wish you'd direct that anger towards the government, but the government aren't blocking the motorway. Although I guess they kind of are, because the government are, paying the police to block the motorway.
Yeah. Look, I think the problem is this. It's like, climate change is a real thing. It is a real issue. But the reality is, what we're doing in this country...
It's a real good issue. Going to make everything warmer.
Everything warmer.
She's talking about the 40-degree heat. People died. People died. People also had barbecues.
Yeah.
It wasn't all doom and gloom. Like,
Yeah.
all right, some weak people who can't, like, sweat properly or whatever, or afford air conditioning, they might have died. But, you know what I mean? Sometimes people have to die. Sometimes, it's like when the wildebeest migrate across the Serengeti, the weak ones get picked off, and it actually strengthens the herd.
Are you saying climate change strengthens the herd?
It's climate change strength, like 40-degree heat. I know for a fact her family, like that is not some poor person. That is somebody who's taken 3 holidays a year with their family to Saint-Tropez, the Maldives, wherever. It's like, man, you cope with the 40-degree heat when you're on holiday in fucking Menorca, or what's that place, Santorini, that everybody goes to.
You're just picking random
places
random
of
holiday
St. Thomas
destinations. Mallorca, mate. Mallorca is somewhere like. I would go on holiday to Mallorca. She wouldn't go on holiday to Mallorca. That's when my family went on holiday in the 90s. Not her. Look, but I think, climate change is obviously an issue. The globe is warming up, blah, blah, blah. And you just go, whatever we do in this country is going to make literal fuck all difference. It's going to make literal fuck all difference. If you really want to change, if you think that it's fossil fuels, which a lot of scientists do, you're going to need to get the big boys around the fucking table. And blocking off the M25 and stopping, a tradesman from getting to Portsmouth on a Friday. They ain't gonna do shit.
Yeah.
Do you think Xi Jinping gives a fuck about that?
No.
Do you think Narendra Modi gives a fuck about that?
Whoever that is.
He's the Indian Prime Minister. Right? You know,
I thought he played for West Ham.
Yeah, probably did with the state of our team. And then you've got, do you think Biden? No. None of this shit. That's a problem. We think in the UK that what we do has an effect around. No one gives a fuck.
Well, also, I mean, I think the UK does. I mean, it's the 6th biggest economy in the world. Smaller if you do it by purchasing power parity, but the 6th biggest economy in the world, just overtaken by India. Funnily enough.
But the Indians are going to overtake us.
But we've made huge strides.
Of course
in clean energy. We're world leaders in clean energy.
Yeah.
And like Rishi Sunak, a lot of our government ministers are at COP27 right now, doing all the climate change bollocks, like suggesting reparations for poorer countries who have to suffer with climate change. And she's still saying they're a murderous government. It's like, what more do you want? Do you want them to whip themselves in the street? What do you want them to do? They're doing it. They're doing it way because the other thing is to deal with climate change. I agree, climate change is happening. I see it as there's some good, there's some bad. All right, we'll have some more stormy weather or whatever. But I don't think it's actually that much of an impact. When people say the impact of storms is getting worse, that's because people have got more stuff. People have got more yachts, stuff like that. So the financial impact of a storm is going to be a lot worse if there's more yachts. So if you look at it like that, it's not actually as bad. And people never look at the benefits. They never look at the areas of farmland that will be opened up. They never look at the fact that the increased CO2 in the atmosphere means that plants grow more easily. There's some benefit. Scotland is going to become more like Yorkshire. There are some some benefits here. And man, I'm more worried. I'm not so worried about climate change. What I am worried about is governments and NGOs and WEF run organisations being handed this kind of unfettered power and unchallenged power over my life and over what I'm allowed to eat, where I'm allowed to go, what I'm allowed to do. All these new taxes on meat, on flying, stuff like that. That's what worries me. The government, history has shown us that the government is bad government is far worse for us than bad weather.
Look, and also as well, my concern is you're looking at this young person and you just think that this isn't a person who's particularly rational. You just think that this is a person who is hysterical.
Yeah.
So you go what are they doing to young people? What are they doing to kids? I remember a few years back, I can't remember Greta Thunberg, who's now been exposed as an anti-capitalist. What a fucking surprise that is.
Yeah.
And they're taking these primary school kids to watch her give a speech.
Yeah.
She's not a fucking climate scientist. Why are you taking a primary school age group to go and watch her?
The only good thing about that is it means it's less time for them to be taken to the trans, drag, story hour, indoctrination, gender ideology thing in the library.
No, they do that afterwards, mate.
They do that afterwards. The time is split between bad climate science and bad gender ideology.
You're scaring, scaring kids. You're scaring people,
which can be good, but do it by threatening to punch them.
Yeah, exactly. The threat of physical violence, mate, which is going back to what worked in the 90s, and we should go back to. But I just think with these organisations, and like the Greta Thunbergs and whatever else, I don't see climate scientists, if they were headed up by climate scientists and reputable people and people coming out and going, look, this is everything that's going to happen, then you'd listen. But if it's a 24-year-old kid who is basically having a live on-air breakdown, or an autistic teenager who's just found a permanent way to bunk off school.
Yeah, communist goblin, telling us out. Because this is the other thing, they're talking about reparations. Rishi Sunak was talking about reparations for climate people, and so trillions. So they're talking about reparations, but trillions of dollars for poorer countries that are affected by rising sea levels and stuff like that. Man, all right. The sort of industrial revolution and the carbon that we put into the atmosphere while we were making our economies stronger has damaged those countries, but they've reaped the benefit of they get all this sort of they don't need to invest in developing technology around, say for example mobile phones or something like that. It gets sort of they get to leapfrog and catch up based on what we've done. And we've seen over the last 200 years capitalism and industrialization has lifted so many people, like hundreds of millions, billions of people out of poverty in India, in China, places like that. It's contributed to a huge uplift in living standards. There's a data visualization expert, Hans Rosling. He's dead, unfortunately, but he does this amazing visualization where he shows the sort of health and the longevity of people in all these different countries. Get over the years, move into the top bracket.
But the problem is people aren't taught about that. People are only taught about a doomsday scenario. People are only pumped full of the the negatives and the bad side, and the fact that we're facing climate catastrophe, the end of the world is nigh, etc., etc. So in a way, if that has been pumped into you and you've just been told that right the way from school, is it any wonder you're going to end up being a 24-year-old kid on a bridge having a fucking breakdown? Do you know what I mean? You just go, well, maybe this is just a natural consequence of you being fed this stuff.
Yeah.
And actually what we need to do is we need to have a more sensible and rational discussion about the climate, about what can we actually do.
And government power.
And how much of this stuff, just like with COVID was a real thing. People died from COVID. It was very sad, and all the rest.
The government response was worse.
Yeah, the government response was worse. And why did they do it? Did they do it because they wanted to keep you safe, or did they do it because actually they wanted power and they saw an opportunity to encroach power and to generate more money and to spread their tentacles?
Yeah, and to enrich themselves. And we saw with the COVID, the mask, the PPE,
the corruption.
There's hundreds of millions of pounds left, right, and centre to people who had no cronies, who had no experience in PPE, but they were they're just dishing out this money, and I can't believe there hasn't been a big sort of investigation.
Of course there not. Of course there hasn't, and that's the problem. So this is real, but government reaction to it and government responses and everything that they put in around it, you go, I just. The moment government, I used to be on the left, but the moment government gets involved in fucking anything, and I think that COVID woke a lot of people up. It woke a lot of people up, including myself, where I saw what happened and I went, nah. And that's what especially kids need to be aware of. When you give power over to the government, number one, you lose that power, and number two, they very rarely, if ever, give it back.
Yeah, absolutely. As Ronald Reagan said, the most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
Yeah. Or I'm Kanye West and I'm in a synagogue.
Francis, thanks so much for joining me today.
No, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, me and Francis are doing some live shows in the Midlands.
We're doing it. So if you want to come and see both Leo and myself, it is December the 20th, December 21st. It's Leicester and Stafford. I've also got a couple of other dates coming through. So if you want, come and see me. On tour, www.francisfoster.co.uk.